there was a time where I thought, you know, Dexter was over, and that was it. We wouldn't get to talk Dexter anymore. Then we had this, brief series. It was a year or two ago, or not too long ago, and now all of a sudden we have Original Sin, and we have, I think, what is it, Resurrection. So we have even more Dexter coming. So it's fascinating to see, how they brought back Dexter, and I was kind of thinking about it the other day. It's like, I'm a huge fan of Dexter. Love the original series. Obviously, with any kind of series that goes on for many seasons as it did, we have good ones and bad ones, and ones that you like or whatever. But once it kind of ended, you thought, oh, okay, that's it. But it's kind of fascinating that they felt a need to bring Dexter back and bring him back in a big way. I mean, like I said, with the previous series and now two more, it's not common that we get to see, so much of something that, kind of came and went and was over, and, we get a ton of it. Not complaining. Like I said, I love Dexter, love the character, love being the serial killer thing. Definitely, takes a very different look at a serial killer and kind of goes behind the scenes, and he's a serial killer, but a good serial killer. So if there's such thing, I don't know. But yeah, so I thought those days were over, but it looks like we're gonna have a ton of Dexter to talk about going forward. And even before I get to kind of talk about this one, I'm already hoping. I don't know if they've made an announcement or not. I don't think they have. But hopefully we get more of Original Sin, and I think, I don't know if they're going to wait to see, what happens with their other series that they have coming out, to see, what they want to do. But the more the better. I'm all for it, and for talking about Dexter some more. So, yeah, I think, just real quickly, maybe a little bit mixed feelings about that previous series. I'm pretty sure I talked about it. Pretty sure I did a review, so you guys can go back and search for that one, that review. But there's a little bit mixed thoughts on that one. So coming into this one, what would I think? What do I think now that season 1 is over? Well, let's talk about it. First, just to say, this is new. I'm not going to guarantee that I'm not going to give away spoilers here. Very hard to with the series, and don't know that I would have much to talk about if I kind of tried to hide everything here. So I'm not going to guarantee that I keep everything hidden. I'll try to leave some stuff out, but I don't know. We'll see. If I think I'm going to give away, something major, I'll kind of let you know. But I'm not. Yeah, I guess there's some things to talk about, some tie-ins. I should say, obviously, if you're watching this, you're watching this review or watching Dexter, you're a fan of the series. You've seen, the original series, and maybe that one that wasn't too long ago. But I think I will at least mention, some of the tie-ins from this to the other one, and especially one important character that kind of is involved in what we got to see when Dexter first started in the first season or two of Dexter. So if you consider that a spoiler or whatever, just be warned. But anyway, I think one of the most exciting things, when they announced this and when you see this coming out, it's definitely the cast. A very, a cast with, you've seen many of these actresses in other things. Some of the actors and the characters look very, very similar to the characters of the past. So I think they definitely nailed that down, and I think going into it, when you're watching the trailer and the teasers and seeing the posters and pictures and all that, you're like, okay, they seem to have the cast down. And so forth. It is, can they nail this? Can they make this, feel like Dexter, and so forth, and kind of continue that same vibe? And I think they did. I think overall they did. I don't think, it was that often. I just, okay, that's not bad. Um, I think, maybe there's a time or two. It is, hard to be 100% solid here when you're kind of, working and trying to be careful, what you do versus what just happened. But definitely with the cast and so forth is not a problem. And I think over this series, over the episodes or whatever, you see, everybody kind of fit their role really well, whether it's looking like it or just behaving like it. I think, overall they nailed that. So it's just basically kind of comes down to, what story they picked and, what they tell us, what they're going to tell us about Dexter. And obviously, it starts off, with a very interesting beginning, tying it into the end of the last thing that we just watched. And then kind of, making an interesting tie-in. So I'm guessing that chapter, I've read, different things about, what they may or may not do with Dexter. That maybe they would explore even that end of it. And I don't know. I'm not really sure. I haven't read too much about Resurrection and where that is going to be placed. I don't know if maybe that's a continuation of that previous one, or that's somewhere in between, or I don't know where that is. Maybe some of you guys really know. I really didn't want to know. I'm like, I don't care. They're bringing Dexter back for more. Wherever they place the time period, there's fine with me. But so, yeah, it kind of starts off there. So that was kind of interesting. But then kind of goes back to the beginning. Or not all the way. Well, it kind of does. But then we see a Dexter who's graduating high school and, is looking for college choices or whatever. But obviously, it's going to end up, in the police department, and we kind of see how he got there and so forth. Not some, crazy magical story or whatever, blah blah. Fairly simple how he kind of stumbles upon that. Obviously, we see the relationship between him and Harry, and kind of how where that started and so forth, and how that goes at the beginning of his career in the police force. We get to see his first kill, his first couple of kills, and I'll touch on that here in a second. But I think, one of the things that kind of runs kind of even more interesting to this overall Dexter and Dexter story is, we kind of see this constant flashback and obviously more from Harry's standpoint of Dexter when he was a young child, and Dexter and his brother and his mother, and we get a more expanded look at that. Obviously, that's something we heard about. Watching the original series, we know certain details, we know certain things of that story and how that went, but we get to kind of get a refreshing, more close-up look of that, and definitely from Harry's perspective, and what he thought and felt and how kind of events unfolded there. And definitely, I think, one of the biggest things to come of that and the direction they were going. And, like I said, I kind of nail you with that spoiler alert. Here comes that spoiler alert of mentioning something that's connected to the original series, is we find out a lot about his brother. And obviously, his brother plays a huge role in the beginning of the original series. So we find out about Dexter, but we also find out a lot about his brother in this one. And his brother ends up playing a big role as this season kind of unwinds. And definitely kind of leaves the, one of the mysteries. Like I said, I don't know where they're going, if they're going to do it. I would imagine they do a second season of this. But definitely opens an interesting door there and how much they want to do. I think once the season concludes and you see that part of this, story in this season, you kind of wonder, it's a touchy thing for them to do, because you realize, for those who have seen the original, you kind of know where that story came from and where that story goes. So you kind of know that, his participation in this story can only go to a certain point. then you kind of have to move on because you want to honor what just happened. Because I think that's one of the good things they've done with the series is that it's not a remake and redo. They keep Michael C. Hall here involved. It's not a remake, reboot, or whatever. Everything is this. They're trying to keep it streamlined here. On the same thing. It's not a whole new Dexter thing. Whatever. We're trying to keep all the pieces in line here. So there's only so much they can do with the brother before it runs up against what we saw happen in the original series. So I think there is a moment there where you see him as an adult now and or young adult come across Harry, and it's one of those moments where you almost try that suspense, what's going to happen, but obviously nothing's going to happen. Obviously both of them are going to survive the moment, and then you just kind of got to move on because you have to honor everything that's happened. So it kind of one of those moments where it's like, oh wow, they got to meet, but then it's like, okay, well, nothing's going to happen because both these characters move on and we can't just rewrite history here. So it's one of those things, but it's definitely an interesting way to go, and I'm glad they didn't avoid that. Definitely leave some intrigue there. Again, if they do a season 2, I'm not sure if we're at the point where, okay, we've kind of introduced the brother, and now we can kind of make him kind of vanished for the time being until, and then, you let the events of what originally happened in the original one just kind of merge with this one. Again, I don't know, it's hard to know what their plans are. You know how long Original Sin is going to go, where they're going to go, where they're going to run up until, to the original. So, but I think, they kind of leave it off at a good point where if they want to add something else, maybe they do. Obviously, they leave it where, hey, it's still a thing. Not, completely ended there, but, if they do a season 2, you may not see him. And they can just leave it there until, your assumption of seeing him, in the original series. But it was good to see, and I thought they handled that well of kind of doing these flashbacks and kind of going old school. And you also got an expanded look at Harry in action. And Harry and his role in the police force, and so forth. So you get to see that. What else to say? I think that's the chapter with the brother. As far as Dexter, obviously, he's going to get his first couple of kills, and I would say that's probably where I have maybe the biggest issue with what goes on here. Obviously, he has that serial killer mindset, and I think, watching what they do and how he becomes, what he's, you already know it because of what you watch there, but you get to kind of relive it one more time about what Dexter kind of went through before he really becomes a serial killer. And I think they do a good job of kind of questioning what, he continues to insist he's almost kind of born this way and this is the way he is. But that's almost because he doesn't really remember what happened. And I think, you get to see what happens. And you almost kind of, you as the viewer kind of say it as, maybe you weren't born this way. Maybe it's more of because of what you went through, but you just don't remember it. Or it's in the back of your mind somewhere. So there's kind of that debate of where his true serial killer comes from. And obviously that's the fascinating thing about Dexter is kind of exploring that serial killer in him and the code and all that kind of stuff. But, as you see, he becomes part of the police force here, gets introduced to this world, gets introduced to this opportunity that we see in the original series him take of, seeing the bad guys that the cops can't find, see, and whatever. But he can see them because of, him and his dark passenger and so forth. And go on his way of finding ways to kill him. And I think, probably the biggest issue I had with any of this is, some of the people he selected to kill in this thing. It seemed like people that he probably shouldn't have messed with or began trying to fight in the first place. I think, once he kind of is in the police force, maybe they're making the assumption that you're not, you're taking the time to think he's not really still should be a college student, but he really should be. And he goes against a person or two that you would think would be, too hard for him to handle at a college standpoint, point of view. They kind of paint it early on. They give you a scene where he beats up, another dude early on, and kind of giving you that, oh well, he has that extra gear, extra strength, but whatever. But still, in that, and even when you watch Dexter in the original series, there were some times where you're just like, no, he probably shouldn't have been killing that guy, but he somehow did. And I guess, maybe you have to kind of give it that leeway here. But my only problem with giving that leeway here is that, he is younger and maybe, unexperienced with killing and so forth. Then maybe it shouldn't have turned out the way, and, you could say, well, maybe luck and this and that and the other thing. But he does. So, I don't know. There's a guy that a big dude who's definitely a bad dude. And, he gets off, by a technicality here. And then Dexter proceeds to go and kill him. And I don't know, he just seemed like Dexter shouldn't have picked this guy. And it shouldn't have been, not that it was easy, but it still shouldn't have been as easy as it seemed to be. Then there's another guy, and I guess, he kind of gets away with it because he was an older guy and he kind of lucked out in that situation. But also probably shouldn't have gone after that guy either. So, it's kind of give and take there. When most of the series, as you watch, he always ends up going against, that one killer. So this one's kind of a little bit different because he's got some in between, he's got some learning, but then he ends up with that major person at the end of the season. And I'll leave that out. You guys haven't seen it. I'll leave that out. A person that kind of makes himself kind of known much later, a huge shock to this person and so forth. And I'm still, as completely mystified as most of the police force and Dexter and basically everybody involved to why this person did what they did. Maybe that's something we'll find out in a season 2. Hopefully we find out. It just seemed very awkward, and I don't know if they were just doing it for trying to do the shock value in here, or so forth. It seemed very odd. It didn't seem complete to, they gave us they gave you a reason, but it just seemed a little extreme. Like it didn't have to go that way. To what this person ended up doing and why this person did it. But I don't know. Another sort of iffy point there, but whatever. But even with that person, I don't necessarily know that Dexter should have been up for that. It seemed like, he, maybe in the original series, an older, experienced Dexter who's killed a lot of people, and as a grown adult, smart and whatever, you give him that leeway. You can get away with that. You can maybe tackle, people that maybe shouldn't be tackling. But as a younger Dexter here, maybe they move him forward a little bit too quickly with what he ended up doing. Especially with some of the stuff he, and some of the decisions he has to make in the final episode and so forth. Yeah, it kind of sets, some interesting things and kind of, what we see from Dexter as he goes on and why he is the way he is and with certain things. But I don't know. I thought, maybe they pushed that a touch bit with, what he's doing. But, I will say, I guess that's what's to be kind of said about Dexter and who he kills. It did get bloody. We do get to see the plastic thing, whatever. I don't think, it went anything over the top. We did, that I guess that scene where we find the brothers in the cargo thing was kind of crazy. That was kind of crazy when they open the door and find them, and probably one of the bloodiest moments of the season, or at least we could see the aftermath, and that was kind of crazy. But besides that, I don't think there was anything over the top. But again, while there is blood and guts, and he is a serial killer, it's more about him being a serial killer, not necessarily, making a show in the blood and guts. Remember, we're trying to contain and not leave evidence behind, and so forth. I also thought there was a moment or two, like we do see him on the boat, and I think at the end, as in the final episode, you see him on the boat and he's kind of driving, and he's still got his thing on, and he's still got blood. I'm like, hey, it makes for a good shot to watch him drive the boat with blood on, but toss it. we're about evidence here, and being, not leaving evidence behind and so forth. Maybe driving in your boat covered in blood is not a good thing. You dump a body, dump the what you're wearing, but whatever. Again, I guess we have to give it its liberties there as well. So the other, I guess there's lots to be said. I don't want to go on and on and on here, but I guess one other thing to mention here. I'm not gonna say she, it's really hard to replace Deborah. Deborah is such an interesting character, especially with her excessive. Everybody knows Dexter and whatever, knows the excessive foul language that she uses. I think it's fascinating. In the first episode that we see her wasting no time, and I think in every episode they introduce her and they bring her around. There's not a moment that goes by where she's not dropping an F-bomb or some foul language here or there. So definitely, good to see that they kept that in line, and good to see that that is just her and starts her at the beginning. I think, seeing a young Deborah is definitely different. You see a different point of view of her and different, her, before she's a cop and whatever. So, that was kind of interesting. They dove into that a little bit and a little bit about her feelings and so forth. But I think, they kind of cracked the door open there. Obviously, again, there's a lot about Dexter and a lot about, the flashback and where Dexter kind of came from, while kind of mixing a little bit of Deborah in. I think at the end of the season, they obviously opened the door to where she, to bigger things for her, or at least, what we see of her future and where we saw her, in the original series. I don't know if they moved a little too fast with that. We'll see. Like I said, if they do a season 2, where are they going to go with that? I don't know if they jumped it too quickly and maybe should have, left her kind of in that position she was. But, we'll see. Maybe, they have ideas there and so forth. I thought that, maybe they should have kept, Dexter and Deborah's world a little bit more separate for the time being. But, we'll see what they do there. Again, if they don't do any more original sin, then, it's almost okay. It seemed like it ended in an okay spot. And kind of thinking about that, if they did kind of end it here, I guess it does kind of end in an okay spot. Thinking about where this one ended versus where the original Dexter kind of begins. Obviously, there's still time to go. I don't remember how old Dexter was when that series started, but I guess there is still plenty of time there, and definitely other characters to introduce. So, or the young version of other characters to introduce. So again, there is some room there for them to go and do things, but we'll see where they go. So with that, again, reviewing series are always so hard because I want to give it something and then when they do more or they don't do it, then you kind of think that, oh, maybe I should have changed it or whatever. I think I'm gonna go 3 pools of blood here, out of 5, and just because I think it was, like I said, obviously good casting, obviously, lots of the cast meant their characters very well, did a very good job. Um, Definitely some interesting things there, but I mentioned some things that that were kind of iffy, and kind of the door's kind of open to kind of that's where it's kind of hard to give it a rating because there's more. With a movie, it kind of ends and you're like, okay, that's it, or it could be a part 2 or whatever, but blah blah blah. But I think I'm gonna go with 3 pools of blood. I don't remember what I gave the previous series, and so forth, even though I wasn't completely happy with everything they did there. So I don't, regardless of what I gave that there, I don't want it to be a reflection of this. I kind of holding this on its own, and thought they gave nailed it with the cast, nailed it with the acting and so forth, and all of that. My issues, as I said, were kind of like who Dexter decided to kill. I wasn't totally there, and then just even though it made for a good story with who the ending killer was and where that was, it was an interesting story, whatever. And they did give you a reason. There's just something that just seemed just. It seemed like they did that just because it was a show, not because it was anything else more than because it's a show, and to make it make sense. I don't know. It made good for the show, but didn't really, to me, just didn't make sense overall, and that kind of bothered me as well. So just little nitpicky things there, to why I maybe didn't get it out. But I'm more than pleased if this cast goes forward. More than pleased if they do more. More Dexter, the better. They've never done anything with Dexter where I'm like, okay, that's it. I've had enough of Dexter. Like there's some other series where like, nope, that's it. It's run its course. Let this stop doing it. No, so far so good. I'm pleased. Have more Dexter. Even though I didn't give it, the highest of highest ratings, I still want more. Bring Dexter back. Let's run another, season and develop some of these ideas and stories. There's other characters to touch into and so forth, and there's still things that can be done, and so forth. So we'll see, and we'll see what Resurrection does and kind of where that kind of takes place, and maybe there's connection to this kind of stuff, and they have a lot to play with, and it's good that they have a lot to play with here and see what they do and so forth. So we'll see. So again, I think I'm gonna be okay with giving it 3 pools of blood. And maybe after if they do a second season or after Resurrection, maybe you can have a better idea of what's going on in the world of Dexter. So with that, horrorsquarereviews.blogspot.com is where you can find all of my reviews written in video. Certainly mostly video reviews for a while now, so you can like and subscribe and do everything else that everybody wants you to do here on YouTube. But if not, no worries, it is okay. I thank you for your time regardless. And Twitter, Facebook, information down below. Feel free to join me there. Talk about Dexter anytime, regardless. Even the old Dexter, even though I probably don't remember every detail. But the old Dexter, new Dexter, whatever. And definitely in the comment section, once you guys kind of catch this, your thoughts, excited about more Dexter. Maybe you've had enough Dexter. Feel free to throw that in as well. But we'll see. So with that, I'll catch you in the next review, horror fans.